Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. As Marcia said, I'm Pete Kauschman, the Executive Director of Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve, and I am so very grateful for your kind and generous invitation to join you today and to make some connections between health and wellness and the power of forests like those at Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve. There we go. Now, how many of you have heard of Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve? Better yet, how many of you have actually visited Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve? Well, we are located in New Hope, Pennsylvania, just across the river from New Jersey in beautiful Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Founded in 1934, the preserve's mission is to increase the knowledge and use of native plants by serving as an educational resource and a destination that inspires conservation action. Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve is the nation's only accredited museum that's dedicated solely to native plants. So yes, we are an accredited museum, and instead of art on the walls, we've got native plants in the ground. The preserve sits on 134 gorgeous acres of pristine forest, meadow, and floodplain habitat made possible by beautiful Pidcock Creek, which flows through the property. We have over 5 miles of hiking and walking trails throughout the preserve, highlighting our plant collection, our unique and increasingly rare plant and wildlife habitat, and amazing opportunities for discovery and wonder. We boast a wide variety of educational programs for learners of all ages. We grow and we sell gorgeous, high-quality native plants all season at our native plant nursery, getting native plants out and into our communities. We depend on a dedicated and passionate core of amazing volunteers that enjoy a wide variety of activities, social interactions, and learning opportunities. And we make our beautiful facilities available for weddings and other third-party event rentals. But the real power of the preserve, as all of you know, comes through our partnerships with like-minded organizations such as Capitol Health. Through our partnerships, our mission and our programs are amplified to a much larger community than what we could accomplish on our own. Our fantastic partnership with Capitol Health enabled us to invest more in our annual Preserve at Play family and children event, serving over 1,000 attendees on a single day last year. The event brought only about 200 attendees in 2022. So this really exemplifies the power of our partnerships when Capitol Health became involved in 2023. But those successes did not come overnight. They were born out of a very challenging COVID pandemic experience and the lessons that the preserve learned during those uncertain times. So what exactly did we learn through that very rough experience? During the pandemic, as we all remember, people were sheltering at home, isolated from our classmates, our teachers, our colleagues, our friends, and our families. And as a result, people sought refuge in safe outdoor green spaces. Indoor venues, as we know, like theaters, performing arts venues, schools, and museums were closed. And visitation to state parks and public gardens like Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve went through the roof. If you were in the market for a new mountain bike or a kayak in 2020 or 2021, you were out of luck. So our natural world was the resource that we all needed to find rest, revitalization, healing, and well-being. And as an example of this resource, this particular slide shows the unique and ethereal moss garden of Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve, which is the center of our new health and wellness programming. Okay, it's quiz time. So does anyone know what this means? Who reads kanji? Well, I will give you a hint. It reads Shinrin Yoku. So does anyone know what that means? Okay, another hint. It is the Japanese term for forest bathing. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, it is Maybe not meaning what you think it means at the onset. We don't have a lot of people taking a bath buck naked at Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve, as fun as that might be. The term forest bathing is a guided meditative experience held in natural landscapes. It engages your primary senses: sight, smell, hearing, touch, and taste. Through immersion in natural landscapes as a meditative experience, you have the opportunity to see the trees, the plants, and the wildlife around you. You smell the fragrance of the flowers, the cool, humid air, the fresh earth. You hear the sounds of bird calls, the wind in the trees, or perhaps a nearby babbling brook. You feel the mossy earth beneath you, or you might wrap your arms around a massive tree trunk. And you can taste the seeds and the fruits provided by the forest ecosystem. Now, most of us know anecdotally about the benefits of engaging with nature and green space. It refreshes, it revitalizes, and it revigorates. But most importantly, it supports personal well-being and physical and emotional health. But there are indeed tangible, scientifically documented benefits to forest bathing. So let's get a little more specific here. A study published in November of 2022 by Xing Li of Nippon Medical School in Tokyo, Japan, details specific measurable results from forest bathing experiences and also summarizes studies by other researchers as well. So first, let's consider our immune system. It was found that 2-day forest walks by male subjects significantly increased human NK, or natural killer cell activity, and those numbers of those NK cells. NK cells are particularly important white blood cells that counter cancerous growth in our bodies. So in the cited study, NK cell activity on the subjects went up by 53.2%, and NK cell numbers went up by 50%. That is a very significantly important result. Interestingly, breathing in phytoncides from trees, phytoncides being volatile organic substances such as alpha pinene and limonene excreted by plants, significantly trees, significantly increase human NK activity. So our cells are responding to what we are smelling in a healthy forest ecosystem. Second, let's look at our nervous system. Forest bathing has been found to reduce the activity of the sympathetic nervous system, otherwise known as our fight or flight response, and to increase the activity of the parasympathetic nervous system, which provides psychologically calming effects. Next, the levels of our body's stress hormones, most notably cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline, are all reduced by practicing forest bathing. Again, breathing in those phytoncides from trees has been shown to drastically reduce levels of particularly adrenaline and noradrenaline in urine samples. So it appears that some of forest bathing's most significant immune system benefits comes from reducing these stress hormone levels, which suppress our immune systems in the first place. So that is why you're at more risk of getting a cold when you're undergoing a significant period of stress. Now, it should seem intuitive that our blood pressure can be reduced by forest bathing. Studies show that both systolic and diastolic blood pressures of groups participating in forest bathing were significantly lower than a control group that did not experience forest bathing. Now, here's a big one. Forest bathing reduces the symptoms of anxiety, anger, confusion, fatigue, and depression. Hence, it is especially effective in countering and relieving mental stress and mental fatigue. Additionally, forest bathing can significantly increase the level of serotonin in the bloodstream. And finally, Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, helps us sleep better. It has been shown to significantly increase sleep time in middle-aged male office workers and significantly improved sleepiness upon waking in the morning and the feeling of being refreshed or recovery from fatigue. But the power of engaging with outdoor green spaces like Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve goes beyond just forest bathing. For example, in 2022, the preserve launched a grant-funded pilot program in partnership with the Quaker School of Horsham, Pennsylvania, and the Foundation's Community Partnership to offer complimentary forest bathing experiences to families that have special sensory needs, formerly known as the autism spectrum, the only program of its kind on the East Coast. We see opportunities to expand programs like this to serve communities in need, such as veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder or patients with cognitive or mobility challenges, such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's diseases. And still, it doesn't stop there. Through understanding the needs of our community during the COVID pandemic, the Preserve shifted its programming to focus more on health and wellness to better leverage our natural resources for the community. So programs such as morning yoga in the Moss Garden, horticulture therapy, and promoting meditative experiences in the Preserve, such as our Green Labyrinth, which was recently featured in the Philadelphia Inquirer, proactively bring the opportunity for enhanced health and wellness, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, to our community. So we look forward to welcoming each of you to the Preserve this year and to our ongoing forest therapy experiences. So thank you very much. I will turn it back over to Marcia, and I believe we're taking questions at the end of today's experience.
Yes, we're going to do that. And let me bring up Ashley here as a spotlight.
Thank you, Marcia, and thanks for having me. I've actually been really looking forward to talking about this because I love like immersing myself in nature and being outside, and especially with like the weather starting to get better with the sun and everything like that. It's been great. And Peter, thank you for your part of the presentation. It was a great job, and I'm so happy we were all able to hear so much about, you know, what you guys offer there. So let me pull up my slides. And just bear with me because technology isn't my strong suit. So let me just get this. Okay. So like Marcia said, my name is Ashley. I'm currently one of our psychotherapists at Capitol Health in our behavioral health department. This isn't our building. I'm currently in our Bordentown office. This is not our Bordentown office. Oh my goodness, where did that go? But we are in Bordentown, right off of 130, and we also have an office in Newtown, Pennsylvania too. And then you can see here our phone number is down there. We offer a bunch of different services here. So we have psychiatrists and we have nurse practitioner that work on like a medication regimen program with our patients. We also have TMS, so that's our transcranial magnetic stimulation. This is something that one of our psychiatrists here do with some patients to help with anxiety and depression. We offer individual psychotherapy, so that's my job here. That includes supportive psychotherapy, whether it's, you know, psychodynamic, CBT, EMDR, mindfulness based. Those are all the type of modalities that we offer, and our therapists offer here. And we also have group therapy, and we have a bunch of groups that we're offering upcoming in the spring. And these are some of the groups that we have. So one is about managing anxiety, healing attachment wounds. This is actually one of the groups that I'm running. Self-compassion. I don't know why this keeps going. I'm sorry. Self-compassion, postpartum, and the art of caregiving. So the art of caregiving group is a year-long group, but all of these are seasonal. So we have our spring groups and then we have our winter groups. But let me get started in, so I'll be examining the nature and the benefits of it on mental health. So I kind of have here a list of just general definitions, kind of some of the terms that I'm going to be utilizing today, some of the terms which Peter had already discussed. I'm not necessarily going to read each definition, but they're here for you to look at. So starting one with mental health, right? So mental health can be defined in a bunch of different ways, but based on the World Health Organization, they define it as a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her own community. So nature, basically what this says is that anything that encompasses the elements of Earth's lands, waters, biodiversity, all of what we see basically outside. And a nature experience, so that's really immersing ourselves in the natural world. Kind of what Peter was talking about with forest bathing, engaging in that sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell of nature being outside and really like engaging in it fully and presently. And there's also this idea of nature connectedness, which I'll get a little bit more into later in the slides. But this idea refers to the way we relate to nature and experience nature. Again, kind of being very present within nature. It's having, a strong connection with nature, really means feeling close, having a close relationship and emotional attachment to our natural surroundings. So here's just kind of laid out. So I think Peter mentioned green spaces. So green spaces really just consist of, meadows, woods, parks, anything we look at outside, right? And it's green. And then there's also things that are considered blue spaces. So this is, the oceans that you see, rivers, lakes, sea. And throughout my presentation, I'll be referring a lot to like green spaces and blue spaces. So I figured this was just a good opportunity for you to kind of get a definition of what that would be. So basically, why should we care? I can imagine whether anybody has seen a therapist or, any type of mental health practitioner, a nice medicine, right, that we always recommend is to go on a walk, or to go outside or to sit outside when it's sunny out. But we don't often really, I feel like people don't often understand like the importance of it and why it's considered so important. So nature in itself has been shown to be really restorative in not only like recovering and suffering from mental illnesses, but also a really big protective factor against general mental health. It's estimated that 10% of the global population lives with a diagnosed mental health disorder, leading to negative health and economic impacts for both individuals and the broader society. So 10% may seem small, but when we kind of look at that, it's really 10% of just diagnosed mental health disorder. And I'm sure everybody here that's watching knows that a lot more people in the world other than 10% live with a mental health disorder, but because of, economic issues and socioeconomic things, and just in general, not maybe feeling comfortable connecting with a mental health provider, there's a lot of undiagnosed mental health disorders and mental illness that is in our world today. So a lot more people than 10% are living with it, but only 10% is diagnosed. So this is a real issue, right? And I think Peter touched upon COVID-19 and when we were in quarantine and all of that, that really exacerbated a lot of either latent mental illnesses or ones that weren't even around. People started really dealing with like isolation and depression and anxiety more than I think ever before. So I think that was when we really took a closer look at how we can, protect against these things and help recover and deal with these things in a way that's not necessarily medication based. So exposure to natural environments and just being outside in general is associated with a lower risk of common mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety. And really this is due to the fact that contact with the natural world is intrinsically motivating. It's really just enjoyable for its own sake. And it can both reduce negative emotions and increase positive ones. Nature-based interventions also, which I think is important, could offer a cost-effective solution by reconnecting individuals with nature. So they can improve mental health and physical health outcomes while also addressing the growing demand for less intrusive and more cost-effective treatment. I feel like a lot of people that deal with mental illness, especially some of the patients that I see, don't often want to go on a medication regimen, and they often feel stuck. So having another option to kind of induce and promote this like positive mental well-being. If they can do that in nature, I think that's great. So what we have here, this is basically an overview of how nature can help our mental health. And I'm going to kind of go into a little bit more specifics after this slide. But according to this model that we see here, there are 3 areas of emotion that we've identified that can be affected by our experiences with nature. And each dimension is linked to different feelings and different motivations. So you can see here, you can see here, so we have threat as one of them that make up our emotional well-being. That's motivated by avoidance and leads to the emotion of anxiety. We have drive, so that's motivated by pursuit and leads to joy. It's linked to dopamine and it's very stimulating, all of that. And contentment, so that's motivated by rest and typically brings calm. So in order to experience good mental health, we really need to have like a balance of all 3 of these. But that's not always the case, right? In a perfect world, we have a balance of all 3, but normally in our everyday, it's really hard to kind of attain that. But so for example, when our threat response is overactive, whether that's, because we're stressed about something that's happening in our interpersonal life, or we're feeling really driven and like taxed at work, our positive emotions get affected. They end up actually being reduced, and which encourages more depression, more anxiety, more of those negative emotions that, we don't typically want to feel. However, though, exposure to nature can generate these positive emotions and balance our mood, resulting in better resilience, and it not being as taxing on us. So in a study, when asked how people benefited from different activities in nature, it was found that 65% of people agreed that they experienced positive emotions from being in nature. And 44% of people said that being close to nature makes them less worried or anxious. So now I'm going to kind of break it down. So it's been found that being immersed in nature has a really positive effect on our cognition. So because time in the outdoors offers, the benefit of mental rest and rejuvenation, it's been shown to improve memory, attention, impulse control, and creativity in the general population. There's been a lot of experiments and studies based on this. And a lot of these experiments have found that being exposed to natural environments improves our working memory, our cognitive flexibility, and attentional control, while exposure to urban environments is linked to attention deficits. So there was a study that was done in Australia where researchers asked students to engage in a dull, attention draining task in which they pressed a computer key, with certain numbers that flash. So very, just monotonous. But they found that when certain students looked at a flowering green roof for 40 seconds, midway through the task, they made significantly fewer mistakes than the students who paused for 40 seconds to gaze at a concrete roof. But a lot of this improvement in the working memory and the cognitive flexibility and all that, I really think has a lot to do with our presence in nature. Nature kind of just invites our attention and allows us to kind of just sit and be with ourselves, and it kind of distracts us from a lot of like the everyday things that are going on that occupy a lot of our attention. So they found a lot of improvements with people that also have ADHD, and children that deal with, like Peter was talking about, autism spectrum disorder and all of that too. So now we're going to talk about mood and nature and how it impacts our mood. So exposure to nature has been shown to also evoke positive emotions, as well as strengthening our resilience and our coping skills. So more research and a review of research with Gregory Brotman. He was an assistant professor at the University of Washington. They shared evidence that contact with nature is associated with increases in happiness, subjective well-being, positive affect, positive social interactions, and a sense of meaning and purpose in life, as well as decreases in mental distress. There was also a 2010 study on green exercise which shows nature's healing properties can be further enhanced when combined with movement, which releases endorphins, which are stress relieving hormones in the brain. So it was said that even just about 5 minutes in exercise in green spaces, so in a park, you know, maybe outside, just like on the grass in your backyard, just 5 minutes being outside, study participants reported improvements in self-esteem and mood, regardless of their health status, gender, or age. And I think this is really important too, because a lot of times, especially when we're like full-time working people, we don't often, you know, make time, I think, or think we can make time to go outside. I feel like a lot of times we feel it has to be this big thing. You know, we need to go on like a 5-mile walk, or, you know, we need to go to a park and have this, you know, big time consuming, you know, event. But really, you know, this study is just kind of showing us that 5 minutes being outside, you know, just to sit outside and drink your coffee in the morning, you know, really has a great improvement in how we feel about ourselves. And I think it's important to point to, you know, how winter, right? The January we just went through, it impacted a lot of us in a negative way because we didn't have the ability to maybe sit outside and experiencing these things. So, you know, now that the weather's getting better, it's really important that we make sure that we spend that time outside, even if it's just 5 minutes. Also, in another study of residents of Denmark, researchers found that children who lived in neighborhoods with more green space and had a reduced risk of many psychiatric disorders later in life, including depression, mood disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and substance use disorders. This is really important, I think, to note too, that for those with the lowest levels of green spaces exposed during childhood, so children maybe more in urban areas and in cities, the risk of developing mental illness was 55% higher than for those who grew up with abundant green space. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about that idea of nature connectedness. So research shows that people who are more connected with nature are usually happier in life and more likely to report feeling like their lives are worthwhile. Like I said in the beginning, you know, we noticed that it's a protective factor against suicidal ideation and major depression. Protective factor meaning, you know, it gives us kind of a reason to feel happy and to kind of have a future-oriented mindset. This idea of nature connectedness also was associated with lower levels of poor mental health. So in particular, we saw that it lowered depression and anxiety levels among individuals that were diagnosed and experienced depression and anxiety. It was also found too that people that felt more connected and immersed within nature and had this like emotional relationship were more likely to have pro-environmental behaviors. So not only did it increase their happiness and lower their depression and anxiety, they were more likely to recycle and take care of the environment, which I think is really important too. So this is something that I've actually looked into a lot, and it's the idea of traditional talk therapy, but kind of moving it outside. So typically when you think of therapy, I'm sure all of you jump to, you know, sitting on the couch inside or laying on the therapist's couch. And if you come to therapy here, you know, we're typically in like a doctor's office style setting, but my office is a little bit more pink and green and has some stuff going on. But typically the traditional way of talk therapy, you would assume, is inside. Well, there's a lot of studies coming out now of the impact of kind of changing that narrative a little bit and combining talk therapy with nature and movement. So walk therapy, for example, or ecotherapy, kind of changing the setting of where therapy happens. So moving it to a more outside environment, whether it's going on a walk, just sitting on a bench at a park, even engaging in like physical activity, you know, so kicking a ball around, things like that. And it's shown to help clients feel more open and find new perspectives and express their feelings, you know, all while helping them connect with the outside world. There's something about being outside, and there's something about kind of immersing ourselves with nature that opens up, I think, a level of vulnerability that is really shown and encouraged in this outside environment rather than in, you know, a room with a stranger. It kind of allows us to be more ourselves and not have that like pressure of looking somebody in the eye or like being, you know, in close proximity to them. They also found that feeling connected to nature was a significant predictor of happiness, even after controlling for the effects of general connectedness as well. So I think it's important for us, as I talk about what nature teaches us, right? But I think it's important for us to kind of take a second and maybe think about our experiences with nature. I feel like in our everyday, you know, we're busy individuals. There's a lot of stuff going on. And when we're outside or even just like taking a walk or doing anything, we're not really present. And we're not necessarily really thinking about how nature affects us or what it actually teaches us. You know, it's kind of one of these gifts that we have that I think are very easily, you know, taken for granted. But what it teaches us really is that nature doesn't have a to-do list. There's ton of chaos going on in nature, and you can just imagine, you know, but yet it still has the stability that we can all kind of learn from. And this like ease and this calm, you know, despite everything that's going on and all the ins and outs and everything, there's still a level of like calmness and stability. Nature also has the ability to really ease our minds when we're feeling overwhelmed. You know, with this stillness, with this presentness, it kind of almost makes us feel sometimes that like there's something bigger than us. Going on with that, you know, nature gives us the sense that we're a part of something greater than ourselves. And it can sometimes get us out of our own heads. You know, I feel like, especially with anxiety and rumination, we can be very concerned about what this person thinks of us or how this would make us look or you know, deadlines and all of these things, right? And we don't give ourselves a lot of kindness and grace. But nature kind of shows us like, this is what we got here. You know, there's so much here that's so beyond you and beyond this anxiety, beyond this deadline. You know, and it kind of helps us escape that stress. So even when disruptive events occur in the natural world, everything eventually rights itself. Whether, you know, there's a natural disaster or there's a storm or there's a flood, all of that ends up kind of receding and calming down. You know, storms die down, floodwaters recede, the sun always comes back out. And I think a lot of time when we're dealing with depression or anxiety or any type of mental illness that we struggle with, we don't always see the sun that comes out. We don't always recognize that this will pass. So I think nature and this idea really gives us this kind of, it's all going to be okay, reminder that many of us could use. And it's happening right now. You know, I think with the January that we had, with all the rain and the darkness, it's temporary, right? And although that was probably a really dark time for a lot of us, and opened up the door to a lot of seasonal depression, maybe that we weren't exposed to before, we can kind of look outside and know now that, oh, hey, you know, this is going to be better. This is going to be okay. So I want to leave you guys all. There's, I think, no therapist in the world that can't leave a talk without a quote. So I have one here, and it says, "Nature is doing her best each moment to make us well. She exists for no other end. Do not resist her." And these are my references. This is all I got from. But and I think we're going to be doing questions now. So thank you for your time. Thanks for listening. Sorry about the technology problems.
Thank you very much, Ashley and Peter. It was very uplifting and interesting and inspiring. So I hope everybody will get outdoors now, and maybe you'll get to Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve, which is a special place. It's my own happy place. So I'm so happy that they could come tonight. Just a few things. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat box. We're going to take those now. Also, I put the survey link for the evaluation in the chat box. If you could kindly complete that, we would really appreciate it. I guess suggestions for programs from that. And of course, we want to know, what you thought of the program. So I will stay around for about an extra 10 minutes after the program is over so that you will have time to complete that. Also, I put in the recording link into the chat box, and the recordings are usually posted within about a week or 10 days, unless we get really busy. So, so you can, copy that link down, and you can always watch it again, or if you miss something and want to see it again, or just want the encouragement to be in nature, then you can do that. All right, so questions, let's see what we got. And if I miss anything, Peter and Ashley, because sometimes people will send directly to the speakers, then just let me know. How can we access the recording? It's in the chat box. And I actually will copy it again once we get through a couple of these. Let's see what else. There are many places in the area that offer forest bathing. Do you know, Peter, Ashley?
There aren't a lot. I know, of course, our programs, we do in season, we do once a month, we do a forest bathing experience. And that is a guided meditative experience with a forest bathing guide. We keep the groups rather small, so it's a more intimate experience. And they're generally very careful to engage all of the primary senses. So the host that we particularly have right now for our forest bathing makes a beautiful shagbark hickory tea that she shares in the middle of the experience. So there's and there's a whole variety of ways to experience forest bathing. It really depends on the guide. But it doesn't need to be specifically forest bathing to get these benefits out of engaging with nature. Someone was mentioning earlier in the comments there, it's really great to kind of see those microscopic qualities as you're engaging with nature, looking at tree bark, looking at the insect life on leaves or in the soil, looking really close at mushrooms or little tiny mosses. You can get these benefits by taking a walk on your own in green and blue spaces. Thank you for the education on blue spaces, Ashley. Or to walk with a guide that knows a lot about perhaps a naturalist. So in addition to forest therapy, the preserve offers guided naturalist walks. So if you have a friend or family member that's really into the environment, or perhaps an organization, a state park near you, or a public garden near you, taking a guided experience can also educate you about nature and bring that nature connectedness a little closer to your experience. So don't think that just forest bathing is the only way to get these benefits. Taking walks on yourself, working in your own garden at home, a lot of these benefits come from that. So consider that, in any type of engagement with a green space is fantastic. But yeah, there are a few organizations that offer forest bathing, but I highly recommend the one at the preserve.
Some state parks have naturalist walks. That's true. People have any other questions? I did just put the evaluation link again. It says SurveyMonkey in the chat box, and also the recording link. It's the one that says capitalhealth.org /com community app. Yeah. So, thank you for the great presentation. Not forest bathing, but the watershed has a great trail. Oh, trail maybe? Great trail. Any others? And again, I will wait around. So please fill out that survey if you can. And I will be here for an extra 10 minutes. Any other questions before we close out tonight? I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, you can watch it again for a little encouragement to get out more. If you like, the recording should be posted within a week or 10 days. And thank you again, Peter and Ashley. It was wonderful. Really appreciate your time and expertise.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.